Um, there is a phone sitting somewhere, screen dark, holding words that have not been sent yet. That is the very first image that arrived when I tuned into this reading for you today. Not a person, not a feeling, a phone, specific and physical. Because the message that is coming toward you already exists, Virgo. It has already been composed um, in some form, somewhere in someone's mind or in their actual drafts folder. What remains is simply the act of pressing send. And I want to walk you through every layer of why this silence has lasted as long as it has, what finally breaks it, and what arrives once it does. Stay with me through this entire reading because there is more here than a simple message arriving. There is an entire story behind the quiet that has surrounded you. Let me describe what I felt the moment this energy opened because it set the tone for everything else that followed. Heaviness, not your heaviness, though I know silence from someone who matters can create its own kind of weight in you as well. This was their heaviness, a specific pressing quality, the sensation of carrying something that has grown too large to keep contained much longer. Silence like this is rarely peaceful for the person holding it. It often grows louder internally the longer it persists externally. I also felt anticipation woven through this energy, a forward leaning quality that told me we are not simply looking at ongoing silence with no end in sight. We are looking at silence approaching its breaking point. I want to talk about why this silence began in the first place, because understanding its origin helps explain why it is now ending. For many of you, this silence did not start out of indifference. I want to be clear about that immediately, because indifferent silence and meaningful silence feel very different energetically. And what I am sensing here is the second kind. Something happened, whether a misunderstanding, a moment of vulnerability that felt too exposed, a fear of saying the wrong thing, or simply an overwhelming uncertainty about how to move forward that caused this person to retreat into quiet rather than communicate. Silence in this context was never truly empty. It was full of unspoken thoughts, full of internal conversations happening only inside their own mind, full of drafts written and deleted, words considered and then abandoned out of fear or hesitation. I am being shown something specific about the nature of their hesitation, and I think it matters that I describe this carefully. There is a fear here of getting it wrong. Not a fear of you specifically, but a fear of how to properly communicate something that feels significant to them. The longer silence continues, the heavier that pressure becomes, because now there is not just the original thing they wanted to say, but also the additional layer of having to address why they went quiet in the first place. This compounding effect is part of why breaking silence becomes harder the longer it continues, even when the desire to reach out remains constant or even grows stronger underneath the surface. Let me speak to what changed, because something specific shifted recently that is pushing this person toward finally breaking through their own hesitation. I am seeing an internal moment of clarity, something that happened recently, perhaps within the last several days or couple of weeks, that made continuing the silence feel more uncomfortable than breaking it. This could have been triggered by something seemingly small, a memory surfacing unexpectedly, seeing something that reminded them specifically of you, a conversation with someone else that brought your name into the discussion, forcing them to articulate, even briefly, what you mean to them. Whatever the specific trigger, the result is the same. A threshold has been crossed internally. The discomfort of silence has finally exceeded the fear of speaking. Does this feel like it is connecting to a specific person in your life right now, Virgo? Has there been someone whose silence has felt heavy, present, almost like an absence with weight to it rather than simple emptiness? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear how this is resonating with your own situation. I want to talk about what this message actually contains because Spirit is giving me specific impressions about its content, and I think the details matter here. This is not a casual check in message. I want to set that expectation clearly. This is not simply, hey, how have you been? Sent without much thought behind it. What is forming carries weight. There has been genuine consideration put into what to say, how to say it, and what tone to strike. I am sensing multiple drafts, multiple attempts, words chosen carefully rather than dashed off impulsively. Within this message, I am seeing acknowledgement, a recognition stated directly rather than implied of the silence itself. This person is not going to pretend the gap in communication did not happen or simply pick up as though no time has passed. They are going to address it, even if briefly, which tells you something important about their respect for what exists between you and their understanding that simply ignoring the silence would not feel honest or appropriate. I am also sensing vulnerability within this message, something personal being shared, not just surface level conversation. This person has decided that if they are going to break their silence, they want to do it in a way that actually means something rather than offering empty words simply to reopen the line of communication without substance behind them. For some of you, this message contains an explanation for the silence itself, context you have been missing about what was happening on their end during this period of quiet. This context may help you understand behavior that previously felt confusing or hurtful, offering clarity that allows you to see the situation with more compassion than you may have been able to access while still in the middle of not knowing. I want to speak directly to the emotional impact this message is likely to have on you when it arrives, because I do not want you walking into this moment unprepared for how it might feel. There may be a rush of relief, certainly, but I am also sensing the possibility of mixed feelings, and I want to validate that in advance rather than let you feel confused if your reaction is not simply pure happiness. Receiving a message after extended silence can stir up complicated emotions. Relief alongside lingering hurt from the silence itself. Joy alongside uncertainty about how to respond. Excitement alongside a guarded instinct to protect yourself from being hurt again if things go quiet once more. All of these reactions are valid, Virgo. You do not need to feel only one clean, simple emotion when this message arrives. Give yourself permission to feel everything that comes up without judging yourself for not having a tidier response. Inhale with me for a moment. I want to speak to your own healing throughout this period of silence, because I do not want this reading to suggest that your well-being has been entirely dependent on this person's eventual decision to reach out. You have been living your life during this silence, Virgo, growing, processing, perhaps even healing in ways that did not require their input or their words at all. I want you to recognize that strength in yourself, separate from whatever message is now approaching. This message, when it arrives, does not erase or diminish the work you have already done internally to find your own peace with or without their communication. I want to address timing now because I know this is often one of the most pressing questions when a reading like this comes through. I am sensing this message is close, not months away, not a distant possibility on some far horizon, but something that feels imminent within a short window of time from now. The energy around this has the quality of something already in its final stages of preparation rather than something still being decided upon. The decision to break the silence has already been made internally. What remains is simply the logistics of actually sending it. I want to speak to what you should do in the meantime, because waiting passively is not necessarily the most helpful approach here. Continue living fully in your own life. Do not pause your daily existence in anticipation of this message, constantly checking your phone or wondering if today is the day. I know that can feel difficult when you sense something is coming, but staying present in your actual life right now, rather than mentally living in a future moment that has not yet arrived, is going to serve you far better when the message does come through. I also want to address what happens after this message arrives, because the silence breaking is not necessarily the end of the story. It is the beginning of a new chapter in whatever this connection is meant to become. How you respond matters. I am not saying this to add pressure, but simply to encourage you to take whatever time you need before responding, rather than feeling obligated to reply immediately simply because the silence is finally broken on their end. You are allowed to sit with the message, to process your own feelings, to consider your own response thoughtfully rather than reactively. Genuine connection deserves genuine, considered communication on both sides, not rushed responses driven purely by the emotion of the moment. Let me speak to something deeper here, which is what this entire experience, the silence and its eventual breaking, reveals about the nature of this connection itself. Silence, this significant, this heavy, does not typically surround relationships or connections that lack real substance. People do not agonize over messages to people who do not matter to them. The very fact that this silence has carried such weight, that breaking it required this much internal deliberation, tells you something important about how significant you are to this person, even during the period when their actions did not clearly communicate that significance. As I bring this reading toward its close, I want to leave you with a complete and honest picture of everything that came through today. The silence is breaking, Virgo. A message is coming, and it carries genuine weight, genuine vulnerability, and likely an acknowledgement of the silence itself, rather than an attempt to simply skip past it. When it arrives, allow yourself to feel whatever comes up honestly, without rushing to categorize your emotions into something simpler than they actually are. Take your time responding. And remember that you have continued growing and living fully during this period of quiet, regardless of when or how this message ultimately arrives. If this reading resonated with you today, please share it with a Virgo who has been sitting in someone's silence and needs a little reassurance that it may be coming to an end. And let me know in the comments if you already have a sense of who this message might be coming from. I read every comment and I carry your stories with genuine care long after this video ends. Until next time, Virgo, the quiet is ending, and what comes next is going to matter.